Call this public meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who have passed away in our community. Roll call.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothschild? Here. Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Here. Dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation Reports reviewed November 16, 2021 and November 23, 2021. 3B, minutes of the non-uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held on November 17, 2021. 3C, agenda for the non-uniform Pension Board meeting held December 15, 2021. 3D, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held on November 17, 2021. 3E, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held November 17, 2021. 3F, Controller's Report for the month ending November 30, 2021. 3G, minutes of the Ethic Board meeting held November 17, 2021. 3H, check received from Drug and Alcohol Treatment Service, Inc., in the amount of $200, which represents payment in lieu of taxes. 3I, check received from Boys and Girls Clubs of Northeastern Pennsylvania in the amount of $1,000, which represents payment in lieu of taxes. 3J, Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation Report reviewed December 15, 2021. 3K, Single Tax Office City Funds Distributed 2021, dated December 20th, 2021. 3L, check received from the University of Scranton in the amount of $200,000, which represents payment in lieu of taxes. 3M, overtime review for all departments as provided by City Controller and dated December 23, 2021, for the period January to December 2021. 3N, minutes of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority meeting held June 17, 2021. 3O, correspondence received from City Controller John J. Murray, dated January 5, 2022, regarding liquid fuels report for the months October, November, and December of 2021. 3P, minutes of the Scranton Redevelopment Authority regular meeting held December 1, 2021. 3Q, correspondence received from City Business Administrator to City Solicitor, dated January 6, 2022, regarding bid award to Riley Associates for the city engineer contract.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have one. As chairman for the Committee on Public Safety, I would like to offer my thoughts, prayers, and heartfelt condolences to the families of retired patrolman Robert J. Gavrin. Prior to his retirement, he served our city as patrolman for 27 years and 8 years as head of the police union. He also worked as a Pennsylvania State Constable. Thank you for your service, and may he rest in peace. That is all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. President, last week when I was sworn in, I failed to mention former Council President Bill Gaughan. I just wanted to thank him for his 8 years of service to the citizens of the city of Scranton, and thank him for his leadership, as well as Kevin Hayes, former solicitor for City Council. So I was remiss in not mentioning that last week, and I wanted to make sure I did this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
First speaker tonight, Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. Did I hear you correctly during the caucus that we might have the 2020 audit next week?
I was told that the sewer authority went to Rainey and Rainey, the sewer authority audit went to Rainey and Rainey, and that it needs to be put into the audit, the final audit by Kohansky, and that we should have it.
And if memory serves, Kowalski has another year. They're going to do the 2021 audit?
Yes, there's one more year left on their contract.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused as to why they originally promised the 2020 audit by September 30th, knowing the history of working with the sewer authority, but we'll see what they do this year. Speaking of statuses, what's going on with the union contracts? They all expired on December 31st. Are they still in negotiations, or we heading into arbitration, or what's their status?
It's my understanding they're all still in negotiations. They haven't gotten to arbitration yet, but I think
Okay,
police
because,
and fire seems to be heading that way.
what they agreed to in terms of personnel compensation is going to have a direct impact on your 2022 budget. So that bears watching, and that needs to be disclosed once we have that information available to the public. Item 3M on the agenda, the overtime statistics. First of all, I was curious. It had the column for December filled out. So you would think that this is for the entire year of 2021, but then I saw the date stamp on the front page, December 23rd, so I'm wondering if there's more overtime to be attributed to December. Nevertheless, it was fascinating that we exceeded the overtime budget by 185%. So instead of the $1.4 million that was budgeted, we have spent $2.678 million. And for 2022, we've only budgeted $1.852 million. So I can understand that some of that may be attributed to absences due to COVID-19, things of that nature, for which we have no control. But that's an awful lot of money going down on overtime, and it's one of those things we've been wrestling with for years. And the controller's report, item 3F, for the month of November. On the expenditure summary page, they show unpaid bills for $421,000, but I don't know how you can say what are those unpaid bills, because you have to run around looking for it. I have asked before in the controller's report if you could, since this is a report they do for you, ask them for substantial figures like that, if they could footnote it saying this amount includes X, Y, and Z. That is a lot of money for a single month to go under the rubric of unpaid bills, because everything's an unpaid bill. I also noticed that court awards was a large number, $408,000. That's now, apparently we budgeted $700,000 for the entire year. That's a lot of money to be paying out in court awards. And I asked before the meeting, what did we budget for 2022? $1 million for court awards. So that's something that bears scrutiny. And last but not least, could you update the public on what's going on with the sewer authority? Are they eventually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, or should I say the city of Scranton seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? So you can answer that now or in fifth order. Thank you.
So with the sewer authority, there's still about, I think, 37 or 38 outstanding easements that still need to be obtained. There was the class action where a lot of them were settled, but these were 38 that opted out of that class action. So they have to be settled individually, and I was told yesterday by the mayor that we're going to start seeing some of those settlements come down because we have to approve those individually.
Do you think this could
I don't
be
know how
here?
many of those 37 or 38 are in the city and how many are in Dunmore,
Yeah.
but it seems like that it's starting to, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that this is the year that we're able to
Let's hope
dissolve
so.
this
Let's
sewer
hope so.
authority.
They ought to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. You know, I've come here tonight because I think it's time to get the residents of the city involved in what's taking place in the city. And I think it's time for the residents of the city to understand that they have an obligation to change what's taking place in this city government and in the city of Scranton, as a whole. So in the next council, I'm going to come and I'm going to make another request for council to put the Home Rule Charter on the ballot. And I'm also going to ask the mayor to do the same thing in the hope that COVID somehow shifted it and it got lost. And if that's unsuccessful, then I guess it's time to start collecting signatures, because I think it's time for the residents to understand quite a few things that they really haven't thought about over a very long, extended period of time. You know, the city's been in distress for 30 years. And it's time to ask the question, is the city in worse shape now than when it went in to Act 47? That's a real legitimate question. I think the residents have to take control of the government and rewrite the charter so that all city information is on the internet at all times, except for personnel. I think there's just a host of questions that have to be addressed by a commission to look at the functioning of the city. The city's been in decline for 100 years plus. And to be honest with you, coming to council meetings can be productive, but when you have council members telling you that they can't get answers to questions, it gets a little silly. Okay? And the other thing is we have to give the residents a voice in their city, where grant money's spent, what laws are passed, what laws are presented to the council. Does the city really need a mayor? Or do we need two councils, an executive council and a city council? Okay, I mean, it's a very complex issue that would be hard to compress in 5 minutes. But this is not a Democratic and Republican issue. It cuts across our whole country because we're a country that's basically leaderless. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, because the American people are just getting poorer and poorer and poorer. I think it goes back to what Thomas Jefferson said when we created the Federal Reserve. I really think that that's a major catalyst of America's problems. But the problems we're experiencing in the city are just mind-boggling. I mean, we've named a city park after a former mayor that did so much damage to the city, it's ridiculous. And the only reason that I can think of how that came up is it was political. And things have to stop being political. And people have to start telling the residents of the city the truth, whether they like it or not. And you know, maybe it's time for the residents to decide how many fire stations we should have, where they should be, how they pick the chief of the fire department, how they pick the chief of the police department. There's so many issues that could be discussed by a commission and change this whole government and take it out of your hands and make a lot of it function in different ways and be much more productive and get the residents out of debt and rebuild a city in decline. And maybe teach the rest of Pennsylvanians and maybe people across this country that in America, the residents have a right to self-determination. And when this council had members who said they were even against putting it on the ballot, it's so un-American, it's ridiculous. It's like letting non-Americans vote. You're just telling Americans they have no right to determine their own government and not even to discuss it because you don't agree with it. That's what this council said, that they didn't think that the American people that live in Scranton have a right to determine the government they have and how it functions. And maybe you can take your time at the end of the meeting and explain to the people here how you reached that conclusion.
Thank you. That exhausts the sign-in sheet. Would anyone else like to address council?
Marie Schumacher, city resident and taxpayer. I would like to ask that if I ask a question that you hold the answers until fifth order, because you guys have been gone for a long time, and there's a lot. I know I'm not going to get through everything anyway, but I was happy to see some pilots money coming in, and I wonder if there was a letter sent out to all of the nonprofits who do not pay property taxes that own property in the city. Is there a quick yes or no, if anybody knows whether there was a letter sent out?
There was a letter sent out requesting, not a hub test, but there was a letter sent out requesting pilots. I know that.
Okay. Then I think if yes, that's a disappointing response. I hope somebody will be following up with the ones who haven't read the letter and taken some action. On 3Q, the city engineer, were there any other responses to that particular solicitation? Do you know?
There were, and they'll be included when we get that legislation on our agenda.
Thank you. And then Joan already talked about 3M and the overtime issue. That one is really bad. What is going to happen so that we don't have a repetition in 2022 of, I probably should have checked to see how much was in the budget, if that's been increased, but I don't know. I did not do that. And we heard Joan talking too about when are we going to, if ever, get out of that sewer authority. Remember, we've got Meadowbrook 2 coming up for stormwater. That has a rather large number of rights of way that have to be obtained. So, learning from the sewer authority, I would like to know if somebody's already been assigned to that, and if there's a budget for that, if that was included in the budget.
So it was included in the budget. Professional services under the BA, that was the increase there for legal and for appraisers for Meadowbrook.
Okay, so there is somebody assigned to getting those rights of ways, because otherwise.
I don't know if it's assigned yet, but there's money budgeted for that.
Okay, because if that can hold up the whole project, and God knows we need it. And stormwater as a whole, it's been many, many months since the HRG report came in, and nothing.
There's been some preliminary meetings with other municipalities in terms of creating a regional stormwater authority.
Has anybody looked at the SAPA plan by any chance?
The SAPA is going to be coming down, I believe, the first or second week of February. There's a 45-day requirement for it to go to the County Planning Commission.
Okay, because I don't know why that hasn't been brought up before. And in something, I didn't make note of it, but there was a name that I'd never seen before, Alexis Antonello, if I'm reading it right. It is a project manager. Can somebody tell me what project this woman manages?
All projects. She oversees all projects currently going on in the city.
And how many projects active do we have at any one
I don't
time?
have a number, and I don't want to, but I could get that for you.
Okay, well, I think one thing I want to talk to you about, next week are some metrics. There are positions that have specific duties, and I would really like to see a log of what they are doing. And then, under 5C, after last year and walking up on sidewalks where there were tables out on both sides, I think the pedestrians should have a specific assignment for those. You know, I felt as though I was interrupting their dinner, and so, okay, I'm out of time. I will try to come back next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. At the close of the last session, I missed the very last session due to reaction from my booster shot, but it was talked about prior to that all business in City Hall is being conducted as usual, as in there are no longer virtual sessions. I was surprised to find out that the Ethics Board is still and has been virtually meeting. Is there any time in particular? I understand that they're thinking about, talking about, discussing, possibly returning to City Hall because they understand that there is an impact with the Ethics Board because it limits the ability for the community to oversee and to communicate and be involved in the process. I was shocked when I saw it online because I figured it was just another meeting that they did not hold at all, but them not skipping a month, they actually had a session. Unfortunately, it's difficult to participate in any of those meetings when there's little announcement, and for months they skip completely, showing up and providing the feedback in the regular scheduled meetings that they are bound to. And I understand there is an issue with, there were members that were missing. There was problems hitting quorums because of lack of memberships, but now that that's filled, that should not be a problem. They talked about the governor's room being available and considering going back there. And I figure if City Hall and the mayor's office and city council and the other government bodies who are representing the people are available to come into this building and hear from the public, even on a limited basis, then the Ethics Board should be in the building doing the same exact thing. They're here to represent the people's interests and also the employees' interest in relation to ethics. Now for the IT department. I had inquired whether or not there was a policy in place for data retention for emails and communications. And I was informed that there was none in place, that they would be putting one together for the year 2022. This runs afoul of the federal acts that run on federal, state, and city governments for data retentions of a minimum of 3 years. If we have nothing in place and there are federal regulations that say there must be data retention for a period of time, if the city government does not have a policy in place through the IT department, it is this body's responsibility to assure that compliance with the laws is put in place by enacting an ordinance for that data retention for the minimum that they are required by federal law. It cannot be a policy will be made sometime in the future when an overseeing policy is already in place that obviously no one has been aware of or no one has followed. And last, I will circle back to the garbage tax, garbage fee. In the last sessions, I asked about whether or not there was a separate account, and I was told there was not, that it was being handled and put into the general fund. Since this, by the ordinance itself, is designated and has been designated to be put in a separate sequestered fund, and has not been since the city has been made aware of it since 2017, when the city was sued for this part of the issue of overcharging. Who decides that laws can be ignored? Who decides that fiduciary responsibilities are something that can be ignored when their specific duty is fiduciary? Who decides that a city law can be ignored? Is there anyone out there with that power to say, you don't need to follow that? Council?
I'll find out what the issue is there.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address council?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident of Scranton. Okay. Has our sewer authority been audited for any of this, these issues? I know I'm kind of dissatisfied from the offset that it was ever even an issue or sold. But
So the sewer authority's audited every year, and that's included in our audit.
you know, it kind of need some changes over there if things don't get resolved. That's all there is to it. It's just not right with how long this is going on. And too many things were just left hang open. I wasn't happy with the legal representation at all. Now, I see that our legal representation for council seems to have decreased the funding for it.
No, it stayed the same.
I think Emil was paid 50 grand a year for representation.
Who's that?
Emil Menorah.
No, I mean, as long as I've been here, it's been the same.
Okay. And, you know, if you, I don't know how you would increase council's tally pay, but compensation, but because it's kind of confusing there. You have 2 people and then 3 people under election, and we have a rule that they can't vote themselves a raise. So I think in the future that should be looked into. There's some way where we can update pay, and you know, I'm not interested in money being donated back like it was other years. I'm just more interested in a sincere job and keeping everybody in mind. Now, in Pennsylvania, we have an attempt tomorrow at passing their election restrictions and redistricting. Is why in the heck is Scranton 4 different representatives going to represent Scranton? I mean, I would hope that you folks would start barking about that and expressing your views. This is ridiculous. We have more people. We'd have to relinquish people to another district here. The average, from what I read, was 62,000, 63,000. And we're going to have 4 different representatives. You know, when I go out to the country, like around Christmas and New Year's, I see flags displayed upside down. I see Trump signs still up. I see all kinds of disgraceful comments. Biden sign upside down. I don't want to be in with those people. I don't want anything to do with them politically. And it's a rotten shame that we're going to have 4 different districts in Scranton. Someday we may not have anyone that really has to listen to us at all, because it's only a couple thousand here and a couple thousand votes there, and it just is getting split up. And I'm sure if you get further north of Clark Summit or Waverly, you're going to see a lot of consternation out there about voting and the issues. So this is really getting very concerning, and hopefully you people and the mayor will agree and voice a few comments yourself. I don't know how we're going to overcome it, because you have an unjust Republican majority because of redistricting. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Would anyone else like to address council?
Hello, Council. Ronnie Elman. You know, Dave and I both use the same barber, as you can see. Before I alienate myself with the new council members, I'd like to welcome you, and I don't see the city in the rose-colored glasses like most of you do. Our mayor's not familiar with so many neighborhoods and the people, but I'm not anti-women. I don't know. I think when I was in 9th grade required reading, I came across Eleanor Roosevelt's History. That's one of the greatest Americans that ever lived, in my opinion. And another one was a lady called Annie Sullivan. Annie Sullivan sort of got overlooked in history, but her achievement, it just equals or surpasses the Kennedys and Edison and Henry Ford and other greats in history. She's the woman that taught Helen Keller how to survive. Helen Keller was like a vegetable, as you might know. They both were teachers at the end. Helen Keller, I think she died in the 30s. She was known all over the world because of Annie Sullivan's wonderful time she spent with this poor woman. I think Sullivan died right after 1900s or so. She didn't live to see the greatness that Helen Keller achieved. Now, I want to compare that to our mayor. This woman seems to be devoid of any ability to govern. You know why? Because she doesn't have an administration. Period. This is a terrible administration. You know, starting with Harrisburg, all the way with the 2 local commissioners for the county to the mayor, things are just outrageously expensive. There's so much waste. Look what happened at the school board. They couldn't leave well enough alone, listening to a bunch of do-gooders, so it cost them more than $1 million, and that's just started, people. The mayor needs to ask for some help from Jimmy Connors, maybe. Mr. Doherty, he was a neophyte, but he had a successful administration. It wasn't made up of friends and supporters. It was made up of people, local people that were qualified. This town is not ready to leave the act. Even Gerald Cross knows that. You people don't want to admit it, but you have a downtown that you brag about. It's like a few years ago when the governor come here, they took him down Cedar Avenue. 3/4 of the businesses on Cedar Avenue weren't paying taxes. They're listed in the paper. Everybody's saying how nice it looks. They can fix up their houses when you don't have to pay taxes. How many times have I said my taxes are 3 times what they were when I bought the house? I don't know, people. It's a real quick. I told you my house insurance went up $33 for the car and the house. Then my gas allowance went up $16. Right there on those two things is $1,000 more this year than I paid last year. And multiply that by all the people in the city that are in the same shape.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman.
They're out of touch. You people, I complained about my neighborhood, not a thing been done.
Mr. Ullman, I actually have responses to your thing, and I'll give them to you after the meeting.
Well,
I'll mention them in
I
fifth
wish
order.
I'd see some of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council?
My name is Charles Newcomer. I've been a citizen of the Scranton a long time, well, 41 years. I was here about 2 months ago and I didn't receive a response. Would you like to debate that?
Excuse me?
I was here about 2 months ago and I didn't receive a response from these lawsuits and these ideas that I have for the city and for the state of the United States. Would you like to?
Oh, could you just give us a copy of those and we'll get your response?
I didn't get any response from you.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I was here about 2 months ago, and I didn't receive any response from these lawsuits about Burgick, ARC, Grant McCarthy, my stuff being stolen, stem cell, my bad times from Guy Singer, and I'd like to know if you have any response for that.
I mean, I don't think that's anything that we could.
I think it is.
Okay,
Everybody,
well,
the guy just said he got a response from you.
I got a response about city issues regarding quality of life issues.
Yeah, I was here about 2 months ago and didn't get a response from my podium presence.
If you give us your email address, we'll.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll give you.
Send us an email. Yeah.
Okay. Enough said. Some concerns I have is Coast Plus did not pick me up. I have an idea that there should be mats outside St. Peter's on the steps so people don't fall. The library is closed. My benefits were not time. Department of Welfare dropped the ball on that. I don't think the commissioner was announced. There was vandalism on my phone. My phone was hacked, mistreatment of the Guy Singer. I think Scranton Council is not being upfront with me. No video help with Scranton Housing Authority. I was overcharged twice at Whiskey Dick's, Backyard Ale House, sexual harassment, CBHS, Scranton Counseling, some other places. Also, there was inappropriate touching at Moses Taylor, lawsuits as Wazoo. And one more thing I'd like to ask for help is if you saw the news, President Biden is repeatedly with Kamala in inappropriate ways. That's unconstitutional. I would like to get something in writing or some public form of help with that, with WAP, WBRE. I complained about my mistreatment at Brooklyn Behavioral Hospital. My memory was gone. I got diabetes up to 700, 1,000, 1,100 the other day, and so forth. That's all I have. I'll give you my email.
All right, thank you. Please leave your email address and we'll get.
Yeah, could you please provide your contact?
Stem cell is the answer. That's my idea. I should be getting fruits, vegetables. It's also the answer to cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments at this time?
Just briefly, I do want to commend DPW for the work that they did during the recent storms that we have, and trying to do double duty there and getting out and get the ice off the streets and collect all the garbage over the holidays. So I just want to thank them for their time and effort and being out in this freezing cold weather.
Thank you. Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
So just two comments with requests from Mr. Voldenberg. So the first comment, we discussed about a year ago exempt and non-exempt employees, and when we're looking at the departments and the overtime, we're seeing some departments going over 500 to 700% over. I'd like to ask Frank to send correspondence inquiring for a list of non-union employees or salaried employees, and whether they're defined as exempt or non-exempt regarding overtime. The second comment, I'd like to make a motion to, or I'd like to make a request of Frank to reach out to Eileen Cipriani, see if we can get an update of a list of all the grants that the city has applied for over the last 2 years. I know there's been many, and in that list, including whether the designation as to whether these have been approved or awarded and what grants are still pending. I'll send an email after the meeting to clarify that, but if we could get that correspondence out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rothschild, do you have any motions or comments?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I do. So Mr. Coyne just brought up two topics, and it's not the first time he brought them up. One, you said you'll address or inquire about the separate account for the garbage fee. So you'll take care of that. And then the second one he brought up about compliance for data retention. So supposedly, I think you said that they're working on it, or could you please inquire? I mean, we approved Bedrock. Can we see who's going to be responsible for this and the reasons why it hasn't been done, and the plan moving forward to do this? Can we have a copy of that plan or some direction so we know what's going to be done? And that is all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Just some of the things that were brought up tonight. We will be getting the SAPA zoning legislation. I know that's in a 45-day waiting period with the county planning commission. Once it gets through those 45 days, we'll get legislation and we'll go through our process. Because I believe we will have to have a public hearing on that as well. In terms of the sewer authority, there's about 38 properties out there that are opted out of the easements, the class action easements. So we have to settle these individually. So we're going to start getting those in the next couple weeks to start winding that down. And once all those easements are settled, then the sewer authority could cease to exist, and then we could get the money that is still left in the account. I think it's an 80-20 split of what's left. 80 comes to the city, 20 goes to Dunmore. In terms, I know one of the topics of discussion has been the 1700 block of Wyoming Avenue and a garage that needs to be demoed. We did get notification this afternoon that garage is scheduled to be demoed this Thursday at 9 a.m. So that's some good news, and I believe that's all I have. Mr. Voldenberg?
5B for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the council number 58, 2021, as amended, the Code of the City of Scranton governing peddling and soliciting within the City of Scranton by further amending to decrease the fee to 20% of its original value due to the COVID-19 pandemic by further extending the time period until December 31st, 2022, due to the ongoing COVID pandemic.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance amending file to Council Number 73, 2021, an ordinance entitled Authorizing the Mayor and Other Appropriate City Officials to Grant a Special Encroachment Permit to City Retail Businesses and Restaurants to operate on city right-of-ways to extend the time period until December 31st, 2021, to further extend the time period until December 31st, 2022, due to the ongoing COVID pandemic.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, an ordinance amending file the Council Number 76, 2021, an ordinance providing for the levy and collection of a license for all performers, entertainers, sporting teams, musical groups, bands, theatrical cast, dancing groups, recital groups, paid lecturers, and speakers by increasing fees to reduce the one-day fee in Section 3 from $50 to $20 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, to extend the time period for the reduction for the 2022 calendar year.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, an ordinance establishing a no parking zone at 550 Plaza at 550 Clay Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, from the beginning of the southern driveway north to the intersection with Olive Street.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, an ordinance amending file to Council Number 57, 2021, authorizing the creation of an event license to alleviate the direct expense to peddlers and imposing an event license fee schedule to decrease the fees due to the COVID-19 pandemic to further extend the period for the 2022 calendar year.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials for the city of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with the Institute for Public Policy and Economic Development to provide the city with an equity plan.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question,
On the question, I don't know if anybody knows this offhand. Is this plan, are we mandated to start this plan to receive ARP funds? Does it have anything to do with that, or it's just the equity plan for the city in general?
I think it's just in general, but we could check. I don't think it's specific to anything. I think it's just a federal requirement, but we'll check into that.
Okay, I'll get something over to Frank after the meeting then.
Okay.
Thanks.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution, appointment of Andrew T. Lazella, Ph.D., of 505 Colfax Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Board of Ethics for a term expiring on August 31st, 2022.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
On the question, I just wanted to point out that happy to see that we're getting another qualified person onto our ethics board, and I know that it was brought up during citizens' participation, but I do hope that they are able to become more consistent with their meetings and get even more work done now with the full board. And I was very impressed by Dr. Lazella's resume and all that he's accomplished in his field of ethics and philosophy. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to thank Dr. Lazella for his commitment to putting in for the Ethics Board. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution, amending Resolution Number 36, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to waive the residency requirements for Eileen Cipriani in her capacity as Executive Director of the Office of Economic and Community Development for the City of Scranton, under certain conditions to extend the time period for the waiver of the residency requirement.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, so this is nothing personal. So when Mrs. Cipriani was appointed, and upon her appointment, a waiver was sent down to us, the residency waiver, and I voted no, and my vote was one of principle. I took the position of being fair and equitable with every city employee, so I'll be voting no again this week and next week.
Anyone else?
I guess on the question, at that point in time, I did make the request that Ms. Cipriani pay the taxes of the city of Scranton, and that was granted. And this resolution does state that she will continue to pay taxes in the city of Scranton, just to make a note of that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, on the question, I'll be voting for this resolution. I appreciate the work that Mrs. Cipriani has done for the city. I feel like we're better off for the work that she's done in the Office of Community Development. Last year's budget, we had changed some things in the office too and added additional responsibilities, including the LIPS department underneath that office. And I feel like it's been going very well, and I just appreciate the work that she's done. I feel that she's really brought a lot to the position, so I'm happy to vote for this.
Anyone else? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, no business at this time. Seventh order, no business at this time. Eighth order, no business at this time.
If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.